Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, and also on TikTok. Folks, this is our 145th show tonight, which has to count for something, right? We began this on the 12th of January 2022. And so we've been going for 3.5 years now, and we're not going to stop. No sign of slowing down, no sign of stopping. And in some ways, we're just getting started. So it's great to be with you again tonight. Please do send in your comments. Please tell us where you're watching from. Send in your greetings on this relatively sunny, great British evening. And please remember, we have got a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. It's Damien Davies from Cheshire Cat Musings, which is a popular YouTube channel which he created not very long ago, and it's already going great guns. We've had Damien on a couple of times before. He is our man in the British constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, which of course was in the news. And the last time he was on was at the time that the Reform candidate actually won that by-election. So he'll be back on to tell us what the lay of the land is like in Runcorn and Helsby, as well as to discuss the week's news and other interesting facts. So stick around for that at 7:30. Good stuff. Now, a lot to talk about tonight. Quite a bit has been happening. The first thing I just want to bring your attention to, which you will not have been able to miss, is this extraordinarily good flag in the background. Battle of the Somme, lest we forget. 110-year anniversary commemoration. The Battle of the Somme began, of course, yesterday, 1st of July in 1916, and it lasted until the 18th of November of that year, fought between the armies of the British Empire and the Germans around the River Somme in France, and it has certainly gone down as one of the deadliest battles of all time in the history of the world. And incredibly, there was over 57,000 casualties in the British Army on the first day, with over 19,000 dead British troops on the first day. And particularly hit were the 36th Ulster Division, which formed around 13 battalions. And we've got a painting here of the Battle of the Somme. That painting is by James Beadle, and it hangs in Belfast City Hall at the moment. And the officer there with his arm in the air, would you believe, is a 19-year-old called Francis Thornley, who was subsequently injured but lived survived the war, and indeed that picture was painted with him helping to recollect it to the actual painter. In the background there, you see a chap with a wee orange flag, and believe it or not, that's a marker to tell the troops how far that they've advanced. The others there at the front with the green bags seem to be throwing grenades that they're carrying in these bags. And on the far left of the painting, it looks like Germans. It's as if these fellows have actually rushed through the German trenches and are now behind enemy lines, as it were. But goodness me, back in those days, the lines didn't move very far or very often. Okay. So we're just remembering that with this flag, so that it's not going to be forgotten. The Battle of the Somme, 1st of July 1916, 110 years ago. Okay, well, what have we been up to this week? We had a very good street stall in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow on Saturday. Saturday was Armed Forces Day, so we had the Armed Forces Day flag flying. We've got a few pictures here that we can go through of our stall. That's the Armed Forces Day flag, which again we've caught in a very nice furl with the sun shining on it. That's really quite dramatic, and it looked very dramatic on the top of our 6-meter flagpole for everybody in Argyle Street to see. Okay, that's 4 of our 7-man team. That was just early on. There was another 3 people would join us later in the day. We love the great British city of Glasgow, as it says there. The stall was very busy all the time. Very busy, as you can see. Lots of people interested, people being attracted by our flags to find out what we're about. We were only too happy to tell them. That's me in the background there with my new red jacket, right? Let's go back to the last picture. Tell me what you think of my red jacket. I got that from John Lewis. Okay. It's not quite a jacket and it's not quite a shirt. It's somehow half and half, but it's got lots of pockets and it's perfect. Certainly makes me stand out as well. I think I was the brightest person on the whole of Argyle Street that morning. Okay. Next picture is just our flags. There we go. Can't miss those. Can't miss those. People always come up and just say how much they like to see the British flag flying. Makes a change from some of the foreign flags of various nations which are flown these days in the centre of Glasgow. So people are always relieved, I think, when they visit our stall. It's like they literally do say thank goodness to see it. They really do. To remind them there's still British people left. Okay. And there you go. There's our trademark t-shirt. Close up of the red jacket cum shirt, which I'm loving, by the way. Absolutely loving. Okay. Good. So that was the work that we did at the weekend. We're also going to be out again this coming weekend, so keep an eye out for us then. As we say, we don't stop doing it. Another thing I'm very pleased to tell you about is we've finally been able today, with thanks to the people who have donated to our crowdfunder, which is going along the bottom here. We've been able to get our new book to the designer. So we had planned to get it to the designer for today and give it a 10-day turnaround. So we're well on schedule, and we've only been able to get it to the designer because of the extra funds that have come in as a consequence of our crowdfunder at crowdfunder.co.uk/summer 2025. And we're entering now the final week of the crowdfunder. We're going to be, we're at 43% of our needs for the next 6 months. Let's try to hit 75% by this time next Wednesday when the crowdfunder closes. If we can do that, we should have enough to get us through for the following 6 months. So folks, let's put up the crowdfunder. There we go, crowdfunder.co.uk/summer 2025. Anything that you can put in there, guys, very, very welcome. Will help us, will help our efforts. Now let's say hello to some people who have come in. Debbie is first up. Good evening, Mr. McConnachie. Thank you, Mrs. Beer and the AFFG family. Rachel Thieves really needs to find a backbone. If she can't take criticism, then she shouldn't be in that job. Well, some of you might not know the news, but she was not very happy today in the Houses of Parliament, and she was sitting behind Keir Starmer, and she was actually in tears, and she did not look good. I have to say, she looked pretty worn out. And to be fair, I'm not particularly surprised because it's not an easy job, and nobody gives her any nobody gives an inch, I should say. But that's, as Debbie says there, that's if you're a politician, you have to be able to weather that particular storm. You really do. And well, we'll see. We'll see where she takes it from here. Derek says, we had a terrific Armed Forces street stall last Saturday. Yes, we did. And it's shocking that there's 20,000 illegal immigrants have come across the channel so far this year. As he says here, costing us taxpayers money, given free NHS medical care, dental treatment, and glasses. That's news, Derek. I didn't know. Derek says, finally, the police are arresting those who are doing illegal takeaway jobs. When is it going to stop? Well, it's good news if they're starting to move on that. Hi, Oksana and Derek from Armadale and Catherine. And to Alan. Well, goodness me. Debbie says, my great-grandfather fought at the Somme. His name is on the Menin Gate. Well, I'm sorry to hear that he did not make it out, but it's certainly something to be very proud of. Have you been to the Menin Gate? I'm sure you will have been, Debbie, in that case. We'll be back out again this Saturday, Exiled Viking, although we will be in a different spot. Alan thinks, and he could be right, councils are afraid to support Armed Forces Day these days. It is nice to see the British flags in town, and Oksana thinks that Rachel Reeves cannot cope with the job. Well, I've sort of touched on this before, but this, if you are the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you might actually be surprised at how little power you actually have, because If you recall Liz Truss, I think we all recall her, she wrote a book which I always return to, called 10 Years to Save the West. Now, if we ignore the clickbait title, of which she has got very little to say about saving the West, if we ignore her various foreign policy prescriptions, which are not really worth the time of day, but if we concentrate on what she says about behind the scenes and how Westminster operates, it really is a remarkable read, and a surprising read as well. And basically what she's saying is, if you get into power, you've got very little power, because the power lies with the civil servants and what she calls the technocratic state, which is to say the so-called Bank of England, the government quangos like the Office of Budget Responsibility, and the various heads of these departments, as well as various financial economists and so on, who are really making all the running. And today, for example, as a consequence of Rachel Reeves crying, the markets panicked. And the question is always really, who are these markets that are panicking? And I heard Robert Jenrick today on Twitter. He was saying, oh, the markets are panicking and this is the problem of Rachel Reeves. And he was talking of the markets as if they're some sort of intangible, amorphous, formless intelligence, as if they're our guiding star that we always have to follow, and worse, even bow down in front of this unusual intelligence that nobody understands. The markets have to be pacified. The markets, we all have to follow the markets and worship at the feet of the markets. Well, this is all just nonsense, because as Liz Truss, of all people, points out, the markets are just people. They're actors in the economic field who are following their own particular interests and sometimes using their financial power to move things in their direction. And they should not have that power. Firstly, we should not be worshipping the markets as an amorphous intelligence or imagining that it is. And secondly, the politicians should be dominating the markets, telling the people with the money, this is what we're going to do, and not be getting panicked when the markets create a fuss. She says here, page 257, Liz Truss. This, I think, is the key to understanding why I was ultimately unable to deliver on my mandate and why my premiership ended the way it did. I came to realize that there is no such thing as the market in this sense. Rather, there are groups of influential individuals in the financial establishment, all of whom know and speak to one another in a closed feedback loop. The Treasury, the Bank of England, and the Office of Budget Responsibility are deeply embedded in these social and professional networks and share the same belief in the established economic orthodoxy. It is a classic example of groupthink. Then she says here, over time, this group has moved to the left, adopting net zero goals and diversity targets while arguably neglecting many of their core duties, such as the Bank of England's responsibility to keep down inflation and maintain financial stability. So in other words, what she's trying to do there is to tell us that these are real people with real names and addresses. And we, as politicians who have been democratically elected, should not be worshipping at their feet. We should not be worshipping at the feet of the markets. And I get quite animated about this because one of the chapters in the book, which has just gone to the designer today, 4,000 word chapter about the markets and about how, if we want to bring in our immigration restriction measures, we will have to fight the markets. And if we worship at the feet of the markets, and if the markets suggest to us that we cannot actually do that, then we'll succumb to the power of that financial establishment. So we have to understand that these people are not beyond reproach. These people will do what we tell them to do. And if they do not do what we tell them to do, tough luck for them, because we're doing it anyway. So we have to lower the power of the financial establishment in the minds of the people before we can get anything done, before we can get real change brought through, whether that's your Liz Truss type of Thatcherite changes, whether it's left-wing changes, whether it's our immigration restriction changes. We have to put the market in its place. We have to say that the economy must serve the people. The people are not here to serve the economy, and certainly not to serve the masters of the financial establishment. So that's a flavour of some of what will appear in our book, which you can tell is really going to be quite radical, because this is a fight for the nation's future. And one of the things that is going to save Britain is putting the market and the powers of the economic establishment in their place. And they will not like that, and they will attack us with everything that they've got. So I can understand that Rachel Reeves, who's probably just a relatively simple person who has been lucky enough to get to that position of power because she was maybe the only person in the Labour front bench who had passed her A-level in economics or something like that. And I'm not actually joking when I say that. So she's suddenly been propelled into that position. She's got the might of the financial establishment, many of whom are not very nice people, on her case every single day. And she's also got a pretty foolish economic philosophy, which makes no sense. Add all that into the mix, and you're just going to get the chaos, which is possibly these days a little bit too much for her. I'm not sympathetic, I have to say. As Debbie said earlier there, it comes with the territory, but I can understand that she would get in that kind of position of maybe frustration or just fed upness. We're not going to be on Argyle Street, Exiled Viking. If I knew what your name was, I could maybe send you the information personally by email. Yeah, very much so, I think, is what I was trying to say there, Catherine. Yes, Reeves is out of her depth on that matter. And Debbie says, yes, she has visited Ypres twice. I haven't visited those cemeteries once. I think I must do so before too many moons pass. Now, we have got our friend Damien Davies coming up at 7:30. Before I speak to Damien, I mentioned the Bank of England there. Now, I've got very strong opinions on the Bank of England on all sorts of matters. And before I worked for a force for good, I worked in the economic world for many years, trying to understand the nature of money and how it is created. And I produced a newsletter called Prosperity, Freedom from Debt, Slavery for the best part of 10 years. And so I basically know how all of that sort of stuff works. And the money system is largely a con, which is kept going by the people who have got a vested interest in making a lot of money out of the way the thing works at the moment. That aside, However, let's talk about the Bank of England. We live in the United Kingdom. That bank was nationalised in 1946. So it's always been a little bugbear that's always annoyed me. Why isn't it called the British Central Bank? Because if you call it the Bank of England, that totally confuses everybody else in all the other parts of the country, because lots of people think in Scotland that the Bank of England is the English bank and the Bank of Scotland is the Scottish bank. Well, no, it's not the case. There is only one national bank for all of the UK, and at the moment it's called the Bank of England. It should really be called the British Central Bank, the BCB, which is what we refer to it, and is what we refer to it in our magazine and in our upcoming book as well, as the British Central Bank. Having said that, in our magazine here, Union Heart, which is available at our shop, we'll just put up the link for that. It's a 40-page magazine. We published it like 4 years ago. You get it at forceforgood.uk/shop-1. In this, we talk about over 100 policies to bring the UK closer together, to do more together. And we have a whole page here about how it's the British Central Bank. This is just going for a fiver. So much knowledge in here. We suggest it should be renamed, and when it can't be renamed, or if it's not going to be renamed, we should at least ensure that in our notes, the Scottish notes and the Ulster notes, that we have a little bit that says, this note is British sterling, which is backed by the British Central Bank. And in that way, everybody would know that Bank of Scotland notes, Ulster Bank notes, all these notes are backed by the main British bank, which is the British Central Bank. And all of that should be done. It would be done as soon as I become Prime Minister. That'll be done in the first week, I should say. And it would solve a lot of confusion, because the way it works at the moment is if the Bank of Scotland, which is a private bank, wants banknotes, it takes its private money and it gives it to the British Central Bank. And the British Central Bank says, yeah, you can print off X number of notes to the value that you've given us there. So if the Bank of Scotland gives £1 million of its own money, its private money, to the British Central Bank, then it gets the right to print £1 million of Bank of Scotland branded bits of paper. Similarly with the Clydesdale, similarly with the Royal, these are all private banks. There's only one national bank in Britain. It's the British Central Bank, wrongly termed the Bank of England. Why am I even mentioning this? Because today they have announced that let's just get rid of that banner for the moment. They have announced that they're doing a whole new set of banknotes. The Bank of England wants your suggestions. And we'll talk about that with Damien. Where's the press release that the Bank of England put out? There you go. We want to hear from you. As we begin to design the next series of banknotes, we invite you to share your views on potential themes. Well, this is right up our street. We love this kind of thing. Our banknotes have celebrated notable historical figures since 1970, when William Shakespeare became the first person other than the monarch to feature on a banknote. Well, I didn't know that. So basically, all these people that have featured have really only featured since 1970. Okay. We have identified 6 potential themes for our next series of banknotes: historical figures, nature, architecture, landmarks, arts, noteworthy milestones, and innovation. And if you've got any suggestions, you're encouraged to share your views. Now, what we'll do is we'll put up the link, the exact link to that in the description box, and also in the comment threads, so that you've got it if you've got any ideas of these things there. And let's talk about that with our guest right now. Okay. Folks, please say hello to our our man in Runcorn and Helsby, the one and only Damien Davies.
Hello.
Good evening to you, Damien. How are things in Runcorn and Helsby this evening?
Not too bad, to be honest. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy with my MP currently, actually. She's making a lot of the right noises in Parliament. Sarah Poachin, the Reform UK MP. She kicked off the argument regarding banning the niqab or the hijab in the UK, which I think is spot on. And she's also making a lot of noise about houses of multiple occupancy where they're just basically dumping illegals into council estates all over the UK. And I'm in a red wall seat. In red wall seats, Labour MPs tend to only go with the party line. If you bring any of these issues up to a Labour MP, they likely don't even respond to it if you send them an email or a letter. So it's good that I've actually got somebody speaking out about these issues, and it shows people that vote Labour in the north of England that another way is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have critiques of reform. That's fair. That's perfectly valid. I'm just happy I've got somebody speaking out about the things I actually care about currently, which I'm sure it would be a refresh for people in Scotland as well if you got people speaking about these types of things.
Oh, it would be amazing, and that's, as you say, that's what helps to, it just changes the tone, as it were. You suddenly see, oh, a voice that speaks for me. And we don't really have that so much in Scotland, or at least voices that will go to places that the current voices don't want to talk about. And so there is that hope for next year, with the Scottish elections coming up on the 7th of May 2026, that a new cohort of people will get in and will move the conversation our way. So that's definitely to be hoped for. Now, one or two people just welcoming you in there. Christopher says you're very lucky to have Sarah Poachin representing you. Absolutely.
She seems to be doing well so far. As I say, nothing's perfect, but it's a marked improvement against an MP that's likely to punch you in the face if you ask them for something or help about a local bridge. So
Yes.
any MP that doesn't punch you when you question them in the streets is a plus.
Yes, because that's, of course, how you're not even just joking there. That is literally how the last Labour MP went out, as a consequence of lamping one of his constituents, which wasn't very MP-ish behaviour, I have to say.
It's not, but it's nice that the establishment look after their own. He got a suspended sentence while we get people locked up for tweets for 2 years.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
I mean, it's a bit strange, isn't it? The actual damage, actual harm to somebody, you get a suspended sentence, but something that could be interpreted as potentially causing harm, well, the establishment doesn't like that, and you get 2.5 years in prison.
It is a big worry, actually, and not only those ridiculous sentences, but there was I don't want to talk about it too much because it's just so terrible, but there's a young lad got killed in London, and his murderer got 6 years. This was just a few days ago. 6 years for taking somebody's life in that way. That's just unacceptable. I mean,
it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. It's a disgrace, and it makes you think that you're in a two-tiered society. So you can get the Attorney General for England and Wales, Lord Hermer, saying that it's monstrous or it's disgusting to imply that you've got a two-tiered society. But when you see sentences like this, there's no other conclusion you can draw.
No. Other than there's something wrong with the actual judge, who has got some sort of weird agenda.
Either that or they're bought and paid for by the establishment, meaning they know what side the bread is buttered. They're in the Overton window, they're in the nice liberal consensus for the elites, and they think, like, we're not going to rock the boat, we're just going to do what the instructed us to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like after the Southport riots last year when Keir Starmer went on TV, and he was making these edicts declaring all the people that were rioting, which the police have later dismissed and said it wasn't riots, it was civil disobedience, and it was basically protests. So the actual constabulary review of that later down the line, they actually turned around and said, "Oh, hang on, it wasn't actually a riot." And that's the first thing. And the second thing is we have the Prime Minister going out and declaring people guilty as criminals before people had even been arrested, and that was backed by the Home Office. There was no due process. Innocent until proven guilty. What business has the Prime Minister got going on TV declaring people guilty before a trial?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting there that you've raised the matter of rioting versus protesting. And this was brought home to me when I read this very short article, which I'll just read in a second. But if you listen to the BBC, they will sometimes they'll use riot if it's something they really don't like. And if they're sympathetic, they'll use the word protest.
Mostly peaceful protest, mostly peaceful.
Yeah. This is Michael Deacon writing in the Daily Telegraph on the 14th of June. And he's talking about how in such outlets, media outlets, the violence, and he's talking about the violence in Ballymena recently, is always described as rioting, yet the violence in Los Angeles is always described as protests. You may have wondered why this is. After all, both Ballymena and Los Angeles have seen cars set on fire, missiles thrown, and police officers injured. These are all very bad things. So why don't the news outlets refer to both as rioting? The answer is simple. The violence in Ballymena is being perpetrated by people who are against mass immigration. The violence in Los Angeles, in contrast, is being perpetrated by people who are in favor not only of mass immigration, but of illegal immigration, and just as importantly, hate Donald Trump. Therefore, their actions must be made to sound understandable and legitimate.
Well, yeah, if you don't like the Donald and you don't like his ICE raids where he's removing the illegals by force, then yeah, you've got to be made out to be the big bad. You've got to be made out to be sympathetic, rather, if you're against the Donald. I mean, I think it's quite remarkable that down in Florida they managed to make a detention center for so-called illegals and refugees, and they managed to do that in a week. Now, if the Americans can do something like that in a week, it's surprising that the British can't do something similar, or is it we can? It's just they don't want to.
It's the latter, isn't it? Yes, we can. Remember during back in 2020, they set up suddenly all these hospitals,
The
as they
Nightingale
called them.
hospitals for COVID that were never used, they were just basically optics, so it looks like they're doing something.
Yes, I was trying to avoid using the C word so that YouTube doesn't put a banner at the bottom with a link to the truth about the C word.
Oh yeah,
but yes.
We'll just call it the cough.
Yes, yes. Now, changing the subject here, Oksana's got a good question for you. Hi, Damien. What do you think of the new party being set up by Ben Habib? Now, for people who don't know, yesterday he set up this thing called Advance UK, which is it's not registered with the Electoral Commission yet. So I don't know quite why he's calling it a party.
I'll tell you why. I've done a bit of research.
What do you think of it? Yeah.
Okay, so he's put out a video and he said he's only going to register it with the Electoral Commission once it reaches 30k subscribers or members.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
And he's doing it on a discounted rate of a tenner for the first 30k. And the reason why he's doing it that way, I think it is similar to Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain. The very important thing is that we can't allow Reform UK to be complacent. We can't afford Reform UK to think, oh, they can just get away with being Tories 2.0. Because the way I understand it, or the way I think of it is that Reform UK was an answer to the fact that the Conservatives are no longer conservative. They're basically Liberal Democrats that like to get elected, so they put a Tory stamp on the tin. That's why when David Cameron took over the Tories in 2005, he changed the policy and allowed Liberals into the party. And as such, the rump of the MPs in Parliament that the Tories have still got are all Liberal Democrats, basically. They're just wearing a Tory rosette. Reform UK was created as the answer to that, so we actually get something vaguely resembling a right-wing party. Now, if you look at Farage and you look at Tice, they are essentially classic Thatcherites in the mould of Thatcher from the 80s. So that was their idea, and that was their vision for Reform UK. Let's get something broadly conservative, and we can get in, and we can do something vaguely similar to what Thatcher did in the 80s. But then you've got something else, which is the MAGA movement in America. You've got basically two trains of thought with Reform UK. You've got the people that actually want something similar to what the Donald did with the Republicans in the States. Make Britain great again, all the illegals out, remigration, focus on revitalising the Rust Belt and basically anywhere outside London and the South East, all of the United Kingdom, including Scotland and Northern Ireland, and actually putting the British people, i.e. me and you, people that were born in the UK, front and centre. And so there's two trains of thought with Reform UK, and I think Advance UK and Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain are based, which is like a consultancy. That's not going to be a political party. That's going to be more like trying to shape right-wing policy. If you look at some of the stuff they're putting out, they're looking at remigration, they're looking at defunding the BBC, they're looking at maybe the reintroduction of the death penalty, capital punishment for severe crimes like the soldier Lee Rigby or the Southport murderer, people that we know are guilty. So it wouldn't be on the statute books for something like, there's a chance they might not have done it, or basically the threshold would be higher. It would be literally red-handed, caught in the act. So they're having, and they brought out a new one today, which is they wanna make it so you can defend yourself in your own home with terminal force if needed. Whereas at the moment in the UK, well, especially in England and Wales, there's got to be a question of proportionality. Meaning, if you could run away rather than lethally kill somebody, you need to do that. Whereas the Rupert Lowe people would have it. Whereas, well, now if they broke into your house, you can use lethal force and there'll be no questions asked. So they're asking difficult questions and they're asking things like that. And I think what it does more than anything else is it forces the conversation, encourages the debate, and more importantly, it shifts the Overton window to where we need it to be, which is squarely in the right of centre politics. Nobody's talking about lefty socialism anymore. Nobody's talking about letting all the migrants in. And the Labour Party is struggling to keep up with that. So I think Rupert Lowe's thing, which is a policy platform to advocate for policies like I've just discussed, is a positive because it keeps Reform UK honest. And what will happen before the next election, my view is, Ben Habib's got a party now that's Advance UK. And basically, it'll be a receptacle. Rupert Lowe and his team of people that's going to be building policy and saying you need to adopt X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C policy. You'll throw it out to Reform UK, in my view. And if they don't bite, there's a receptacle there. So basically, the Advance UK is the threat. If Reform UK don't stay honest and actually keep with the aspirations of the grassroots. That's the way I view the whole thing. I think it's all part of a coordinated plan. I actually put a video out on my channel yesterday, and that's my stall on the matter. I think there's a lot of people in Reform UK, the grassroots, me being one. I'm a voter member for Reform UK. Some of the policies or some of the things that are coming out from the two higher ups, Tyson and Farage, are a bit too centrist for my liking. I'd like them to be a bit more hardline. And I think that these two things that launched over the past few days are going to keep them honest. And I think that can only be a good thing because there's a lot of people in the grassroots that are like, well, we need X, Y, and Z, and they're sort of falling on deaf ears at the moment. So that's my view. I could be proven spectacularly wrong, but I think that's the whole point of it. And if you ask Ben Habib and you ask Rupert Lowe what I'm telling you now, they'll probably deny it because you don't want to put the plan out there. You want to do all the machinations behind the scenes. You don't want to put all your cards on the table because then the jig's up.
Well, thank you for that. That's a very fulsome reply to Oksana's question about what do you think of the new party. Plenty of food for thought there, which it hadn't really occurred to me, using it as a pressure on reform to move that way.
Because if you think Reform UK was created because we haven't got a Conservative Party anymore and to keep the Tories honest or to try and supplant the Tories. But even if we got Thatcherism 2.0, that might answer a few of the problems, that might sort a few of the issues, but it's not going to sort everything. Like, we've not heard anything on Reform UK about a Great Repeal Act at the moment, which is undoing Blairism. So that'd be getting rid of the Supreme Court. There'd be a question about abolishing devolution. I don't know if before that or not. Getting rid of the London Assembly, getting rid of the Irish Sea Border, the Windsor Framework, reincorporating Northern Ireland back into the heart of the United Kingdom. That's the one policy that Advance UK has got that I'm really, really pleased with, because it's something that Reform UK have been kind of silent on, is the Irish question with Northern Ireland. Now, from my understanding, the Good Friday Agreement in the 1990s, there's nothing specifically stating there needs to be an open border with the Republic. However, for the sake of cohesiveness and social tensions, they decided to maintain an open border. Now, there's never really been much of a border between the Republic and the United Kingdom anyway, due to the common travel area established when the Republic left the UK in the early 20th century. But before the time of mass migration, it wasn't really an issue. I never treated Republic of Ireland people as different to me. I thought, well, we're all part of the British Isles. It's all fine. It's all. But now, it sort of tethers us together. If we got the best government in the world, mass deportations, Britain for the British, if Northern Ireland don't follow suit with that open border, the EU could import 100 million migrants to the Republic, and they've got free access to the UK. So it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, absolutely. We touch on this in our book, volume 2 of A Big Book for the Union, and basically point out that anybody who comes across illegally across the land border between the Republic and well, yeah, if you come across the land border claiming asylum, that will be an illegal act, because you can claim asylum in the Republic of Ireland and you can stay in the Republic of Ireland. You don't need to claim asylum by coming across the land border into the United Kingdom to do it. So that would restrict a certain number of people as well. And I think you can, as far as the airports and the docks going across the Irish Sea are concerned, that can be controlled if you have the will to do it. But certainly right now, there's lots of people coming over the land border to Northern Ireland claiming asylum because it's easy for them to do so. That should simply be prohibited, and it should be deterred by the full force of the law.
Well, I had an idea, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Say, for example, you've already claimed asylum in a comparable country to the United Kingdom. So, say, for example, you applied for refugee status in the States or Canada, Italy, Australia, and you've been declined for whatever reason. You're a security risk, terrorist threat, whatever you want to say. You've got no ties to their country, whatnot. Well, that's an automatic decline from us. It was good enough if the Americans have declined you. They've declined you for a reason. That's good enough for us. No further questions. Anybody that's come to us on a small boat that's already had a refugee claim rejected by a Western nation, whatever the reason, we don't want them. If they've refused them, we should refuse them. It's simple as. It's like all these people that are coming over from France. They probably had their asylum claim rejected in France. So that would be my policy. It'd be like, right, straight away, if they've rejected you, you're not going to get accepted here. Simple.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. To be frank with you, it's not one that I've really given much thought to, because I'm not sure if that really happens a lot of the time. It certainly does. That there is that, what they have a word for it, asylum shopping, I think they call it.
Basically, shopping around for the best deal.
Yes, and it should be prohibited. You can't just be turned down in France and then, I'll try my luck in the United Kingdom. There should definitely be no. You just write in a law, like, if you've already claimed asylum in these particular these countries that we consider to be on the safe list, then you automatically, it will be an inadmissible claim, and you'll have to go back. Yes, and I totally agree. Now, in the final 5 minutes, I just want to bring your attention to the Bank of England. Let's put the banner up again. That the picture that was talking about the. There we go. We want to hear from you. Suggested notable historical figures. Historical figures. I always think that's a weird word. I always just say historic figures. Anyway, nature, architecture, landmarks, arts, culture, sport, noteworthy milestones, innovation. Have you any ideas? Let's start with historical figures.
Oliver Cromwell.
Oliver Cromwell. Let's get rid of this Bank of England thing.
Oliver Cromwell, rightly or
I-
wrongly, he challenged the monarchy's absolute power. Rightly or wrongly, he is a historical figure. Now, in my local, I've got a local town near me called Warrington, which is about a 10-minute drive from where I am in Runcorn and Helsby. They've got a big statue of Oliver Cromwell in
Mhm.
town centre. And I always thought it was weird when I was a child. I said, like, we're a monarchy. He got rid of the monarchy. He cut off a king's head. Why is there a big statue there? It's because
I think you were
historically,
right the first time. I think you were right the first time. Yeah.
it was like, well, why? Why is there even a statue here? When the monarchy was restored, they would have probably demonised Cromwell. So why is there a
Absolutely.
statue in Warrington to him? And it's like, well, historically in Warrington, Cromwell was actually, that's where he led his battalions against the crown. And my local castle, which is in Runcorn, called Holton Castle, was the royalist stronghold. And they attacked the royalists in Runcorn on our big hill and our castle, which is just ruins now, by the way, from Warrington. So that's why he's got the statue in Warrington. But yeah, rightly or wrongly, you may hate him, you may love him. You cannot deny he's a historical figure.
I think that's absolutely correct as far as he's a historical figure is concerned. What I would aver is that there are historic figures that are just too polarizing to appear on a banknote. And I would suggest that he is a polarizing character. You might be on his side, you might not
Do
be
you
on
mean
his side, but to actually
divisive,
put
too
somebody up there,
divisive?
too divisive, I would suggest, if I was on the Bank of England committee, I would say, well, he's certainly a man that's never appeared on a banknote, but perhaps, but is that good?
Got you thinking, haven't I?
Good. It's a good call, that one, and Oliver Cromwell.
And I was thinking for nature, maybe David Bellamy.
David Bellamy.
The reason
Yeah,
is
yeah.
he sort of got slightly shooed away from the TV because of his actual views on climate change. They weren't with the perceived orthodoxy, and because he's not in the conversation on the right side with climate change, he quietly got shooed off TV. And because of that, he should be on a Bank of England note, in my opinion.
Has he passed away or is he still with
Yeah,
us?
2019. He passed away in 2019.
Right, right. Because somebody just suggested Luke Littler, the darts player, for the £50 note. And he probably deserves it for his achievements at such a young age. But I don't think they would put people up on a banknote who are still alive. Because I was thinking about Tim Berners-Lee, who certainly created the great innovation known as the internet.
Yeah.
And that has been one of Britain's recent gifts, if you want to say that, to the world. However, the chap's still alive, thank goodness for him and his family. So I can't imagine them putting him on a banknote.
And I was looking as well, there was one where it says architect. Sorry,
Yeah,
architecture. It's not saying architects, it's saying architecture.
architecture, yeah.
So I was thinking maybe the like the Church of England Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool. It's a huge building. It was completed, I think it was beginning of the 20th century. I think that
Oh,
would
yeah.
look quite striking on one of our banknotes. Or you could look at maybe one of the huge cathedrals up in Scotland, something that's really, really awe-inspiring. Or maybe the Liver buildings from Pierhead in Liverpool, that would be another shout because they are, or the Cunard building. Or if we're looking at historical events, maybe the Titanic.
There you go, the Titanic. Yeah, yeah.
Because that incorporates Ireland into it as well, because it was built in Belfast.
Yes, because I was just thinking that as well. It's if you're going to do it, well, this is where again we go back to the name of it, the Bank of England. They don't well, they do actually specify. If we bring it up again, that
It should
thing.
be called Bank of Britain.
Yes, yes. It goes. However, there are many ways. The third paragraph. However, there are many ways to represent the UK. So what that seems to be suggesting is that the Bank of named the Bank of England is actually going to use on its banknotes items from all around the UK. So that's quite good as far as we as unionists are concerned. I like that. Maybe that'll push them into understanding that maybe the name isn't quite fitting. But so it doesn't look like they're just reserving it to English events and historic figures. So I think in that case, they should have a balance between, as you say, something from Northern Ireland, maybe something from Scotland, certainly something from 2 or 3 parts of England and Liverpool, and the cathedral there. Like the idea of that. The Liver building was the first of its kind as well. It was the first one made out of a certain kind of, I need to look it up, but it's like made out of certain kind of cement or design or something like that. It was quite a ground blazer in its day. Just what have we got at the moment as far as the notes are concerned? We've got, this is the £50 note. I mean, how many people have ever had a £50 note in their pocket? But if you do have, you'll find this chap. This is Alan Turing. This is only a forecast of what is to come and only the shadow of what is going to be, it says there, which appears to be his famous quote of his. What was his job? He was
he created the machine that broke the Nazi Enigma code during World War II.
Oh, right.
He actually shortened the war by 2 years because he actually cracked their code, and a lot of his theories and whatnot were basically instrumental in they were the footprints and the first steps towards the modern computer.
Right. And there's another one there, the Charles Dickens. That's a £10 note. So you see that one quite regularly.
Well, we used to. It's been discontinued now.
Oh, has it?
Yep, that was Series D. Sorry, Series E. That was in the 1990s when I was in high school.
Right. What do you think of that?
I like it. When I was a kid, I seen that photo and I never really knew who he was. And I was like, we'd done Dickens in school, we'd done Great Expectations, Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist. But that was like the first image, because you see a £10 note on a regular basis where you're seeing the photo of the author. Because back in the day when I was in primary school, the author's pictures weren't really in the books, especially for the children's versions of the novels. So it's people that make a difference, and yeah, that's what I think. It should be people that are actually monumental. It should be people that are essential to British history. It shouldn't be people that are there, basically the diversity hire. They're there because they are a certain skin color or a certain sexuality or a certain protected characteristic. That's the language of the Equality Act, isn't it? But no, it shouldn't be anyone like that. It should be people. It should be giants. It should be people that are actually. I mean, can you imagine Diane Abbott on the back of a tenner? I think not.
Back of an £11 note, perhaps.
But yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, all of this nonsense. I just hope they don't try to. Because I remember a few years ago when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, he brought out the 50p, and there's an image of Rishi Sunak when he's Prime Minister holding 50p, and it's the diversity is our strength, or diversity built Britain. And it's the Prime Minister of Indian heritage holding a 50p, trying to perpetuate the myth, the lie, that Britain has always been a nation of immigrants and Britain has always been diverse, which is not true. And we need to make sure that the myth doesn't become the reality and the reality doesn't become the myth.
True enough. And now that you mention it, of course, they are going to do that, aren't they? They're going to be, I can imagine now, say there's 10 designs, 5 of them are going to be like woke stuff, events, the arrival of the Windrush, stuff like that. I can see that happening. But
I actually done a video on that. I actually done a video on the Windrush last week when they were trying to say, oh, the Windrush generation built Britain. I'm like, no, it didn't. In fact, there was actually, I don't know if you know this or not, Labour MPs at the time, if you Google it and you have a look into it, they were furious about 500 migrants from an empire country that weren't white. They were very specific. The issue was that they weren't white.
Oh, yeah.
Would they ever be able to integrate into Britain? And they were afraid of the scandal. And this was under, I think it was Clement Attlee in 1948. And they were flipping out. They were flipping out. They were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to let the ship dock? Are we going to let them come here? And like, that was 500 migrants. And they weren't illegal. They were here legally. from the Caribbean, and the Labour Party was in a tiz thinking how the public are going to react to this. Now they welcome in 500 to 1,000 illegals across the channel every day. And if you've got a problem with that, you're the racist.
Yeah. That's the absolute absurdity of it.
It just shows that the Labour Party, as it is now, is not the Labour Party that built the NHS. It's not the same beast. It really isn't.
Yes, the Budgie Burger suggests put Morrissey on one of the notes. I'd be up for that. Absolutely.
Maybe Billy Connolly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who. I mean, I quite like. I always think, as far as historic figures, the one that always jumps out at me, of course, is James VI of Great Britain.
Yeah.
He has never been on a thing. He brought the regal union together. Queen Anne brought the parliaments together. So both of them are quite worthy figures, and they would start a discussion about the union. They certainly deserve to appear on British wide banknotes.
I had this little tete-a-tete on Twitter today, and there's this English YouTuber. I won't mention his name. I'll protect his modesty, shall we say. He said that the UK is a political union. It's not a country, it's a political union. So I had to reply. I said, actually, you're wrong. It's a country. It was a country that was created in 1707. It's very specific. The Acts of Union very specifically and explicitly says that England and Scotland have merged into a single kingdom under the name of Great Britain.
Yes.
As such, it's literally the letter of the law. So when anybody in Scotland says Scotland as a country, well, Scotland as a country, or people down south say, well, England as a country, like, no, and not in any real sense. Not in any real sense. It really isn't. The separate legal jurisdictions, maybe. We've got the same army, same parliaments, same currency, same prime minister, same monarch. In any way that counts, we are a single country. When people say, oh, England is X, Y, and Z, Scotland is A, B, and C, you're in love with something that doesn't exist. It's not existed for hundreds of years. That's just the reality. It's just what it is. So people, I mean, I'm in England. I've got my England flag up here. I've also got a Welsh flag as well.
Oh yes.
So I've got both, but you can celebrate each part of the UK, but the UK is the political unit, and it's not literally just a political union. That is what.
Yes, it's much more than that. It's much more than just a political union.
That is the separatist mindset, and that is the mindset. And this is the thing as well, that a lot of people in England, like this guy, never used to think this way.
And to whom are you referring? You may as well just tell us who this is. This a famous person?
He's not famous. He's just a YouTuber like you or me. He's called Andy the Cabby Cabby.
Oh, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this is what the SNP have done, and they've managed to successfully do this with a lot of English people, and they're perfectly decent, white of centre. They're decent people, and they're good people, and you can see that in the videos. They are good people, but that's what the SNP have managed to do successfully to a degree. It's fostered the sense of grievance and sense of upset, and something that I never question personally is that I am British. But there's a lot of people that no longer see it that way.
Damien, that's where you and I and others come in, is to correct that particular view of looking at things. Now, time has been shooting on because we've been having such a great conversation. But folks, Damien Davies is at Cheshire Cat Musings. So if you're on YouTube, just search for that, or the direct link is youtube.com/@ Cheshire Cat Musings, all one word. It's been great to speak to you. We've had a good chat tonight, Damien. You're welcome back anytime you want to appear. Just give us a bell and we'll schedule you in. Thanks for all your thoughts tonight.
We'll have to make this a regular occurrence, I think.
I think we will. We need to get you on. Catherine says, great chat. Everybody, let's say goodbye to Damien, and thanks for your good work, Damien. We'll see you hopefully quite soon.
Well, thank you for your time, and all the best, and I'll speak to you soon, all right?
Cheers. Great stuff. Good to speak with Damien there. Now, folks, in the final minute or two, requires me to say, we have got our crowdfunder ending next Wednesday at 7:30, the 9th of July. And last time I looked, we're at 43%. We're trying to get to 75% of our needs for the next 6 months, which isn't a whole lot as far as some NGOs and charities are concerned. We operate very frugally. Every single pound note will get put to good use and get put into the fight. And we've got a whole summer of activism lined up. With your help, we can achieve it. And you just need to go to crowdfunder.co.uk/summer 2025. And if you want, you can claim rewards. We've got these t-shirts. In large, we've shifted one or two of these actually during the crowdfunder, so we've only got the large, the extra large, and the super large left. We've also got our wee books, a big book for the union, and various of our incredibly attractive and colourful greeting cards, which are blank on the inside and can be used whenever you want to wish somebody the best of British or to thank them for something like that. Budgie says cheers. Oksana says thanks. Rafa says goodbye, Mr. Damien. Christopher says thanks. There you go. There's a Catherine suggests Mary Queen of Scots for the notes. That would be an interesting one. Put a Mary Queen of Scots on a Bank of England note. Great stuff. We'll be back next Wednesday and we'll be able to tell you exactly how much we've made on the crowdfunder, because it will be ending next Wednesday. Until then, it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.